Hello, welcome to Good Games Well Played, episode 193. I'm Clint, aka JCM. With us this week is Isli.
Yo.
And Messiah.
My cat is chasing her tail.
Want that cats will be catting. But yeah, we, kind of a light week. Not a whole lot happened. There was like a EA had like an investor call, and they were basically saying how Apex Legends isn't really doing numbers for us like we thought it should be right now, or where we want it to be. And I guess like they plan to kind of work on like a Apex 2.0 essentially down the line. Like it was sort of offhand kind of a comment. It wasn't like an official announcement of an Apex 2.0, which I thought was really funny. It wasn't like Respawn came out and said, yo, we're excited to announce we're working on Apex 2. I was like, okay, sure. That's how we find out about this Battle Royale is getting a sequel to it. But they also talked about the next Battlefield game being supposed to be expected in fiscal year 2026. And they showed a Battlefield Labs trailer, which is some pre-alpha footage of the next Battlefield game. And essentially, they're going to be doing a lot of community testing, where community can come in, test some stuff, test weapons, levels, design, stuff like that. And there's going to be like they're coming back with the single player like campaign. There's obviously the multiplayer stuff that everybody wants and loves. But yeah, they're interesting approach to this to be like, hey, we're going to bring in the community. You guys are going to try stuff out super early and kind of help comment on and give feedback to, which is kind of like a double-edged sword, because sometimes you can have good community feedback and other times you can just have like really bad community feedback. It's just, it can be really, really rough, especially when it's like, I always think about when Apex did this, speaking of Apex, like when that, right before it stealth dropped, like they worked with a lot of streamers, FPS streamers, to kind of play the game, play test the game, give a feel for it. Kind of like, okay, I could see where like, if they're, the best of the best streamers, you want to get them to kind of comment on it, because they're also can have that influence on their audience if they like the game and whatnot, and they are familiar with a lot of FPS franchises and the way stuff can feel. But sometimes when you do, like StarCraft ran into that problem where they only did balancing for the top tier of play, because that was what was entertaining and made money for tournaments and whatnot. But it's like, okay, you can balance at the top tier, but then that's not going to like trickle down to everybody in diamond, gold, silver, plat, whatever. Like it's going to be like, oh, this one change that isn't significant at top tier, that 0.0001% of play, and just become really imbalanced for low skilled players. Especially like I remember with the Void Rays. Like the Void Rays had this buff in Heart of the Swarm, I believe might have been Legacy of the Void, and it was just like, all right, all the newbie players who play Protoss, they just massed Void Rays, and there wasn't like a really good, there were strats to counter it, but it's like pro strats, like you have to have perfect timing, perfect injects, perfect this, perfect that, and it's just like, I don't have that, man. I'm a low level player. What are you doing? So hopefully the feedback,
the people who get paid to play it for 6 to 8 hours a day, and not the people who play it after work.
Yeah, it's like, and I get I'm surprised there isn't like some kind of like a tiered list of that patch, like, oh, if your MMR is this, then it's like, okay, maybe this thing isn't that good, but that'd be extra tough to do, and who knows how the community would react to that. But yeah, I'm kind of excited. They had a link too where you can go to sign up to play, and I went to go do it like not long after the video came out, and like it's like, oh, you're in the queue. Your current position is like 327,000 something. I'm like, all right, people are clearly signing up for this, Battlefield Labs thing to participate. So hopefully it does well, because I didn't play the previous Battlefield. I only played it when it was in pre-alpha. I had like a open beta, actually. I played it there, and like it was okay, and I never went back to it. And it didn't do well. They eventually like turned it around way later, but like at that point, I'm not going to go back and play the new Battlefield because it's no longer new, and I'm already playing other stuff. So, but yeah, if there's an Apex 2, it'll be after Battlefield, so it'll be quite a bit until another Apex big update comes out. And then we also had Capcom had a little spotlight where they talked more about Monster Hunter Wilds and stuff. They gave a couple more details on the new Onimusha, but they also announced Onimusha 2 Samurai's Destiny Remaster coming out. And I never played Onimusha 2. Like, Onimusha is such a funny franchise because I played the first one, back in the day when it came out, and I liked it. I just never played any more after that. And I don't know why. I think because I didn't have the money to buy it, probably, is the case. But it was like a franchise that I played. It was like one and done. And then I never went back to it.
That's one that
I kind of feel like
came out right around the time that my friend and I were just renting games, and one of us would play and the other would watch. So I don't think I ever actually played Onimusha myself, but I've seen all of the games.
Yeah, Isli, you were saying?
Oh, I feel like that was just like it came out at a time when you maybe weren't making all of the game decisions for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I'm curious. Let me look up when Onimusha 2 release date. The original came out, yeah, because that would have been 2002. So I wanted, because Onimusha would have been either 2000 or 2001 after the console came out. So yeah, if I didn't put it like on a Christmas list or something, or because it came out in March, so by the time you get to Christmas, it's like, oh, what am I going to put on there if I'm going to put any video games? Oh, maybe there's some other games I wanted to put on there or something. Yeah, it's like I wasn't working. You're still in, still high school, everything. You might have a job at that age, but I think I was like mowing a neighbor's lawn or something for like $15 every other week or whatever. But yeah, just like, yeah, exactly. It comes down to financial. But I just never went back. I just kind of fell off. Yeah, because when did the Onimusha 3, that must have came out? Oh, that was, 04. So that was just 2 years later. Yeah, I wouldn't have been playing much. I would have been stuck playing, God, who knows what I was playing in 04 on PS2 at the time. But yeah, so it'd be interesting. I'm curious to see, like, okay, maybe go back and check out this game I never played since it's got a remaster. I don't know if they gave a release date for it. I think they just kind of showed it off. But yeah, there weren't too many updates on Way of the Sword. Like, they didn't necessarily show a ton of new stuff. They just kind of talked about it for a little bit, so nothing exciting out of that. I think they did say, like, don't expect, like, like, they didn't say Souls, but, like, don't expect punishing difficulty for the new Onimusha. It's not that
We're not
kind
making
of game.
a Souls-like. We're just making Onimusha.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like, it's just Onimusha. So I thought that was pretty funny. And then, yeah, we talked about after the Switch 2 got announced that they said that there'd be a direct at some point. The direct now has a time and date. So April 2nd is when the Switch 2 Nintendo Direct will take place. So, a little bit of ways off. We got some time. I doubt anything will get leaked ahead of that. They're usually, I feel like, pretty tight-lipped on the Nintendo side.
I mean, it's gotta be a lot of rumors and shit that, I saw people posting like, oh, here's the patent for the controller. I don't care. Just wait.
Just wait till it's officially done. Yeah, because there's a patent. Sony has a billion patents, then they don't use any of them. They just have them to gatekeep them, to be like, okay, we don't want anybody to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. And then some TLoU 2 or TLoU Season 2 discussions, which essentially is TLoU 2. Neil Druckmann was in an interview. I'm trying to see who he was talking to. I think it was Entertainment Weekly. And he had a couple of comments and basically saying, how so Caitlin Dever is playing Abby. So we're going to go into heavy spoilers for TLoU 2 right now. So if you haven't played TLoU 2, don't listen. I'll put spoiler tags in the timestamps. But basically saying how she essentially doesn't need to bulk up like Abby did. They kind of like wrote that out of the first one. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, okay, but then how is the scene going to play out at the halfway point when... Or not even halfway point. The end point. It is the halfway because at that point you switch to Abby. But then when you get back to the halfway point as Abby, you kick Ellie's ass, and then like you just dominate her. And then it's like, don't come after me. So then when she does find her, and she's so emaciated from being tied up and imprisoned by this biker gang, I forget their names, the Rattlesnakes, the Viper, whatever they are. It's like that's showing like, look how much this person has suffered themselves because they're no longer who they are, essentially, because they've been, that monster that you knew in your mind isn't that person here because they're all fucked up. So I don't know how they're going to, like, how is that fight in the theater going to play out? Like, is it going to be not as one-sided, or is it like instead she just studies a bunch of Taekwondo or something? Is she like John Wick? Like, that's what it is. It's jujitsu and all that stuff, and she's just going to John Wick Ellie across the face or something.
I feel like that's such a weird thing to cut to. I know, like, they're probably cutting it because of all the stupid people that complain, but that's, to me, like, such a core part of her character, because it's like, when we first see her, obviously she's the Abby we know, but then you flash back and find out who she is, and she's just like a girl, like a normal ass person, and then you're like, oh, she trained incessantly and became this like bulked up, muscled behemoth just for this like specific revenge plot. Like, it really shows her like
dedication.
the depth of her vengeance and like
Yep.
her dedication, everything like that. And then you see her again, like you said, when she's a little bit emaciated, and you're like, oh, that's right. At one point, she was just a person, and she just hates so much that she decided to like dedicate her life to becoming stronger. So like having to like cut that out is so unfortunate, I think, is the word I'm looking for, especially if the reason is because they didn't want people to like bitch and complain about Abby like they did when the game came out. So
Yeah.
that's the reason that's wholly disappointing. And also, yeah, if they're going to keep that theater scene and they're still going to make Abby like completely dominate, it doesn't make as much sense because now, the whole point of that theater scene is like Ellie thinks she's like so smart and so capable, and she basically literally hits a wall of a person, and Abby's just like, I'll fuck you up, don't continue.
Yeah, because he says here, he really kind of breaks it down to why they did it in the game. He says, quote, we would have struggled to find someone as good as Caitlyn to play this role. In the game, you have to play both Ellie and Abby, and we need them to play differently. We needed Ellie to feel smaller and kind of maneuver around, and Abby was meant to play more like Joel, in that she's almost like a brute in a way, and she can physically manhandle stuff. And that doesn't play as big of a
explanation, though.
Yeah,
because they
I
don't
know.
play differently in the game. They don't
Yeah.
play they play the exact same. The stealth is the same. The combat's
melee.
the same.
The melee
Okay,
is different. Like,
sure.
you
The
can
melee
take
does.
people
The
down.
melee has the
easier,
same
but
effect, though. It has the same effect.
If you have a weapon, yeah, but when you just like fisticuffs with Abby, you're like, when you're fighting the oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name, but like when you're fighting the cult, like, you can really kick them off you, whereas Ellie, it's like, okay, you need to make sure you got some stuff. But it's like he says here, that doesn't play a big role in this version of the story because there's not as much violent action moment to moment. It's more about the drama. I'm not saying there's no action. It's just, again, different priorities on how you approach it. And then Mason chimed in and said, I personally think there's an amazing opportunity here to delve into someone who is perhaps physically more vulnerable than the Abby in the game, but whose spirit is stronger. And the question is, where does her formidable nature come from, and how does it manifest? It's something that we will explore now and later. Like, I'm sure it could be done. It's just, I'm just thinking about so many scenes where I'm like, how does it play? Like, obviously now I can understand the beginning. So the beginning of TLoU, like, she's not solo going to Jackson. She has her whole crew with her. So it's like when they find Joel and Tommy, it's like, yes, they can overpower them because it's a whole group. So that scene can play out just fine. You don't need, whatever. But then, yeah, it's like, I think about the scene in the theater. It's like, how is that going to play out and yada, yada. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's like, okay, is like, if she's part of the WLF, are they not going to have her train, or will she just be, maybe she'll have a little muscle, like she's got strength, because strength training is not 1-to-1 to hypertrophy training, so it's like she could be strong and just not jacked, kind of way. So who knows? Like, you'd think though the WLF, like in the show version, would also be like, if you're, maybe she's not a lead scout or something, or like a lead soldier, and just like, hey, yeah, you don't have to hit the weights all the time or something. I don't know. I just, that a little bump. Like, you don't have to get like, super jacked. I need that Hollywood secret sauce to do so kind of jacked. But I feel like you can, do something. Linda Hamilton, Terminator 2 it up or something like that, But who knows? Maybe she will. Like, I haven't seen Caitlyn Dever in a while. Maybe she's got some biceps and shoulders on her. I don't know. But yeah, interesting stuff. I'm curious how it's going to be written and how to play out. But they did say that also there's, we knew that when they had the lost levels added into the TLoU 2 remake thing they did, that they're also going to have some extra cut content in the show as well, outside of just some of those levels that they showed in that game. So I guess some pretty brutal content that they revived from the show that wasn't included in the base game, or even in the extra content that they showed. So I'm curious what kind of brutal content they say there's going to be. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for it. I like Caitlyn Dever, but I'm just curious, yeah, like how it's going to play out. Like, I don't know. It'll be interesting, but interesting stuff. And we know that's coming out soon. That comes out this year. That last trailer they had for it was like, hey, yeah, here's the release date. So yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. I still think it'll be good. I am always worried about sequels and follow-ups, though.
Yeah, I mean, if wait, what does it say here? Sorry. Screen Rant's title is "The Last of Season 2's Controversial Abby Change is actually great news for the HBO show." And you're like, all right, sure. Yeah. But let's see. I'm trying to get the release date for it. April. So April's when it's come out. That's 2.5 years after season 1. That's a long time. Yeah. So yeah, not too long. April's kind of around the corner, like right around the corner there. Shows the way speed everything moves, so it'll get here pretty quick. Yeah, looking forward to it. It'll be fun. We talked about to death, like where are they going to end it? How are they going to cut it? Are they going to do the single side thing, or because it's a TV show and splice it because it's going to take so long for the third season to come out? If HBO gives the official green light, which I don't think they have yet, I think it's still just like, hey, they knew they split it, but which is concerning because I wonder how much that affects. Like, so there's an article, I didn't comment on it, but it was like, oh, because the Switch 2 got announced, sales of the Switch have slumped. It's like, yeah, that's going to happen. Like, anytime a new console comes out, the current one in the line has a sales slump. You know, there's always the rumors of a Switch Pro or this, and then it's like, oh, it was a Switch OLED or the Switch Lite eventually came out, and it's like, okay, and then people kind of jump on that bandwagon. Then you have a big spike in sales because all the people that waited got the console. I wonder if knowing that a season going into it isn't like. So a good example, I suppose, is spoilers. I didn't watch the show, but spoilers for Squid Game season 2. But from what I've heard, season 2 ends on cliffhanger setup where it's like, oh, season 3 will be the continuation / finale.
Yep.
But people didn't know that going into it.
Correct.
But you know that with TLoU. So it's like, are there people who are like, oh, I'm not going to resub to HBO to Max to watch this until the rest of the content comes out? I imagine it has to be lower versus like, video game people waiting for a console that got announced and not buying the current one. But I'm wondering what percentage of people would do that. But I feel like you'd want to be part of the conversation still, right? Even if you knew it was not going to be because I guess the people that didn't play the game, they won't know where, how it could be cut because they have no frame of reference, I guess. But I'm really curious.
I mean, my stance on that is always basically, as long as it's a whole story, I don't care. But I hate when it's cut off with half a story. And like Squid Game did kind of the half a story thing. The other one that jumps out to me was what was it? The Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Like that one pissed me off. I don't like when they split up one movie into two and it becomes a part 1 and a part 2, but part 1 isn't a whole and complete story. And if they do that with Last of Us, that will similarly annoy me. So I might wait.
Yeah, we'll see. I guess you'll have reviews probably that like week ahead. But yeah, who knows? I'll watch it just so I can be, because luckily it's weekly. It's not a episode dump. I'll probably wait until a couple episodes are out and then resub to Max and then watch them all or something. But yeah, it'll be curious stuff. I'm because you've said it up front versus hiding that fact to be, Kojima didn't come out and say you only play as Snake through the tanker, for Metal Gear Solid 2. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the news. Like, there wasn't a whole lot. We're kind of in that lull leading up to, former E3 time, I guess. And I'm curious, we'll probably have a Keighley showcase of some sort. Maybe there was rumors that PlayStation, like not direct, but like PlayStation little showcase, State of Play would be coming this coming week. And some of those have been right. Those rumors have been passed because Sony usually announces them like a couple days beforehand, unless it's a direct, like the big directs, which is essentially their E3s. It's like they'll say like activities like, hey, tune in for a PlayStation State of Play Thursday, like, and they'll announce it on Monday or Tuesday or something like that. So curious to see if anything comes out of that and if we get any news. But other than that, not a whole lot this week. Pretty quiet. So let's go ahead and jump into what we've been playing. Go ahead and start with you, Zai. What have you been playing? Honky Star Rail?
Yeah, pretty much. Honkai Star Rail at work. And then when I come home, I haven't really felt like getting into anything. So I was looking through my various libraries of things that I've been given for free through like Twitch Prime. And so I was just looking for something like really quick to play. I found like a little like farm sim game that I've been playing called what's it called? It's like it's on my desktop. Hang on. Something Valley. I don't remember. Everdream Valley. Every farm game has some kind of Valley Dream name. I don't know. So I've been playing that. It's okay. It's a good like turn brain off, play farm game. I'm not fully convinced that the dialogue is not AI generated, which is a little weird. It's either poorly localized or it's AI generated, but it really doesn't matter because I'm not attention to it anyway. So that's been my kind of like turn brain off after work game that I've been playing. But other than that, I finally got to play the Monster Hunter Wilds beta yesterday. Played it for about 6 hours, I think. My playtime is like 7 hours, but I think I had it paused for or just sitting for a little bit. So I pretty much did everything that they'll allow you to do in the beta. You can, once you finish with like the quests and the optional hunts and stuff like that, you can literally just go out into the open world and collect stuff. You can fish, which is amazing. You can like hunt as many monsters as you want because all your progress, well, most of your progress probably carries over to the main game. So if you want to like hunt parts or collect things, you can do that. But it's super, super fun. I will say though, you do have the option to play the missions solo, but with like NPC hunters. And that works well for some hunts, but there was like a level 4-star, I think, hunt that I was trying to do, and I just could not do it with the NPCs. Like, it kept, the whole thing with Monster Hunter is like, if you don't lock down the monster, it can run away. That's like the hunt part of it. So you have to like chase it through the map, and sometimes you have to paintball it because you'll lose sight of it or it flies away and stuff like that. So this particular one, when I was playing with the NPCs, was just like constantly running away, and we just could not kill it in time, and they were constantly dying, and it was such a pain in the ass. And I was like, how is anybody doing this? And so I was like, fuck it, I'll just play with other people. It's late at night. I don't have voice chat on. There's like in-game communication that you can do, but most people aren't really paying attention to it. So I was like, whatever, I'll just go into a lobby. I want to see everybody's characters too, and I just like wander around and I'll do this hunt or whatever. So I go in an online lobby. There's, of course, tons of people around like the quest giver or whatever. So I'm checking out everybody's characters, just seeing what people, if anybody did anything asinine in the character creator. You can't get too crazy, like FromSoft crazy, but you can get a little crazy. So I wanted to see what anybody did. And then I joined the hunt that I was trying to do. I found one where it was like the party was almost full. And so I joined it. They had already tagged it and were like fighting it or whatever. So I run out there and we're fighting it, and I cleared in about 4 minutes. I was like, oh, I think the NPCs just suck. I'm a little bit worried about that. Like, you can get away with it for most of the hunts probably, but for like a really difficult one, it's, if you're going to have to do one for story progression, you really just don't want to play with other people. It's probably going to be a little bit rough unless they do like adjustments and stuff like that later on, especially when the game actually comes out and more people are playing it and more people are wanting to play solo, because you do have the option to just do it yourself. So it's just you and your Palico. But the like core gameplay of Monster Hunter is doing it with other hunters. That's like pretty much why people play the game. So giving you the option to do it with NPCs, but really you can't. So you might as well play with other people. It's a little weird. But luckily, like in other Monster Hunter games, especially newer ones, you can turn like voice chat off and you just communicate the way that you've always communicated in Monster Hunter with like stickers and generic commands and emotes and stuff like that. So you don't really have to, you can like in-game commune with people if you want to, or on hunts, or you can in-game with your friends, but you don't have to. So that's at least kind of nice. If you want to just join a hunt that's already in progress and like run out there and help, that's pretty nice. It looks gorgeous. It looks so good. It runs really good. I might be a little bit biased because I did try to run it on my potato computer and the benchmark just laughed at me and showed a big L. So it was weird. But seeing it that way and then seeing like how it's supposed to look is very nice.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's so fun. The controls feel good. Monster always has this kind of like weight to the combat system. It's not as agile as FromSoft games, even with like heavier weapons. When you play like that, there's always, no matter what you're playing, there's always this heft to the combat. But it actually feels really good for what it is. It's easy to read fairly easy to read the monsters and dodge and attack and everything like that. And best part, they brought back my beloved insect glaive, and it feels better than ever to play it. So I'm 100% on board just because of that. They took my favorite weapon and they made it so fun to play, and I love it.
Nice. Yeah, I hear that's a lot of people's favorites. And whenever I hear folks, especially on Min-Max, when they talk about Monster Hunter, it's like, oh, Insect Glaive.
It's so fun.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, PSN, we didn't talk about it. PSN was down for like 24 hours, Friday till Saturday morning or Saturday sometime. Yeah, I didn't.
I barely made it. I barely survived.
Yeah,
that's why I have my farming game.
Yeah, that's why I was like, well, good thing I'm not playing anything on PlayStation.
I know.
Right now that requires internet connection. Yeah. But Isli, what have you been playing?
I've just been playing Nine Souls still. I've gotten really into the game and kind of just been cruising through it. Well, not cruising through it, but it is a really interesting Metroidvania. So I said before, I think I'm like 75% of the way through the game now. I'm making the assumption, and the game kind of tells you early on that you have to collect 9 souls, which are basically like these seals from a high council. And unless there are strange surprise bosses, which maybe there are, I've collected 7 of the 9. So, about 75% of the way through. This game is hard. I was really kind of caught off guard by how challenging it actually is. I think it's significantly harder than Sekiro or Lies of P. It is definitely a challenging game, and the exploration aspects of the Metroidvania are downplayed and kind of take backseat or second seat to the combat. The exploration is still really fun. The world is extremely interesting, and I love the story in the game, which is something that I don't feel happens too often with a Metroidvania, where the story is actually fun to explore and figure out what's going on. And if you play the first like 10 minutes of the game and aren't intrigued by the story, you probably won't like it. But if you play like the first 10 minutes of the game, there's one scene in particular that happens within the first 10 minutes. And if that doesn't hook you, the game's not for you. But man, I've really been enjoying it. It is a solid combat game. I said I'm not cruising through it because I think each boss so far has taken me like dozens upon dozens of attempts. I'm not sure there's only like 1 or 2 bosses actually, including mini bosses, that I beat quickly the first time around or like within a few tries. Most of the major bosses, I've probably had to spend like a few hours slamming my head against a wall. So I was kind of surprised by that, but great game, great combat, really fun.
It's good. Yeah, I another streamer I follow, he just picked up 9 souls, and I was like, well, he started playing. I was like, careful. It's like, because he didn't know what to play. I was like, hey, it's like Sekiro Lies of P with its parry stuff. So just FYI from what I've seen. I don't know how far he got, but
the parry mechanics are really good in the game. The only thing that's kind of annoyed, like, I think the game is a pretty solid 9 out of 10, and
9 souls out of 10.
Yeah, 9 souls out of 10 basically. And I have really enjoyed the combat. The only thing that's kind of throwing me off is there's definitely some hitbox wonkiness where like you'll parry an attack, and I've had this happen on certain fights that really annoys me, where I successfully defend or counter an attack and then I like dash into the enemy to follow up and do some damage because you have to find like open windows, and the attack I parried will then hit me because I dash back into like the swing. Like the weapon will be paused. Let's say they take a 360-degree swing starting at the top of their head, and then they like do a circle attack all the way around them, and I'll like parry the circle attack, which places me behind them, and then I like turn around and move closer to them to attack again, and the hitbox for their weapon still kind of exists, so it ends up hitting me when I move back into it, which has been really annoying. Like, it's not a parryable attack, it's more of it has like a lingering after shadow of damage that kind of annoys me sometimes because it makes the fight feel a little bit less polished and fluid. There are also like 1 or 2 bosses where I just think the hitbox animations it's basically like the monstrous bosses. The hitbox animations are really weird for what you're actually parrying, and sometimes it's not actually like when the weapon connects with you. It's like some of the monster enemies have really big weapons, but the part you're actually parrying isn't when the edge of the weapon makes contact with you. It's like there's a center line of the weapon that's the hitbox doesn't, cover the entire outline. It just covers the center line, and you're only parrying the center line. So you actually have to wait for the weapon to like somewhat overlap you before you can parry. And those instances I'm definitely kind of annoyed by because they don't feel as clean as everything else. But then like the human-sized enemies, things like that feel really good.
That's good. Yeah, I was watching I'm watching them play a little bit. Like I tuned in a little bit later to see like where it is. Cause I've seen a lot of the mid and late game. I've seen like the final boss of someone else who'd played it. But I was like trying to check the beginning bit. I wish there was like I think it's on Game Pass, isn't it?
It might be.
It might be on Game Pass. Yeah, because like one of those games like I'd be curious just to try it, but I'm not like in the mood to like play it right now. But I want to like experience like play up like to a first boss and like just to know the mechanics. Just fill it out.
Yeah, I mean, the mechanics are fun. The very first boss of the game is just kind of, it really cracks me up because he's objectively an easy boss, but they throw all of the most annoying things at you right at the start. So, you know how like Lies of P and other games that are kind of in this vein have a boss that's usually like a gatekeep boss that forces you to learn the mechanics? Usually that's not like the very first boss in the game. Like, God, who was it for Lies of P? I mean, the end of Lies of P kind of force you to learn the mechanics, but you could get through a lot of them without having like a good knowledge of the parry system there.
Mm-hmm.
Nine Souls, it's the very first boss of the game. You have to learn the parry system for the very, very first boss, and there's environmental hazards in the first boss fight, and it's a 2-phase boss fight. So it just kind of cracks me up because all the things that make people go like, oh man, this is a hard boss, there's a second phase, or oh man, it would be an easy boss if only it weren't for environmental hazards. They just throw that all at you at once and make you learn it immediately.
That's funny.
They said, "Get good, idiot."
They do. They say "get good, idiot" right at the start, which kind of cracks me up. It kind of annoys me, but it kind of cracks me up too because it makes the rest of the game more enjoyable once you get past it. But holy shit, it's got to turn a lot of people off.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm sure it probably does whenever you have one of those slam your head against the wall boss in the start, where it's like, especially if like, because I mean, there's so many people I've seen who play Souls games, or I've heard people play Souls like games, anyways, where it's like they don't, or any game with parry, and they're just like, I just don't parry. It's like I've never been good at parry. It's like it feels like, especially in the games that emphasize it, it feels like because in Souls you don't have to parry. It's like whatever, you don't have to do it in Bloodborne. But there's so many other games where it's like it's such a core mechanic that if you don't learn it, it's like got to be so much more. They were like, yeah, you can just dodge and stuff. Like I've watched people like only dodge in Lies of P, and I'm like, man, and they do it, but I'm just like, it's like tying an arm behind your back sometimes. I'm like, come on, like you just gotta try, man. But anyway, yeah, I feel like I'd probably try it at some point. I just don't know when I'd get there. But yeah,
expect it to be hard.
That's what I will be expecting it, and then when it's Lorelei and Laser Eyes for me, I'll be like, what the hell, Isli? I thought you said
Dude, if it is, I would be impressed. I feel like you typically are better at parry games than I am, and I am typically better at like boss fights that are like dodge based, so it might click with you more. I would not be surprised, given I think that like some of the fights that I've struggled with and like Sekiro and games like that are fights you breezed through, and then like typically the monstrous battles in those games that require dodging are the ones that I've had an easier time with. So you might, but it also might mean it really clicks with you and you really enjoy it.
Oh really?
Uh-oh. What?
No, I don't think that went through. But no, it just sound funny. Like it could be. Like I guess maybe I'm decent at parry. Like I don't know if I am, but let's see here. Sorry, just trying to look at Discord for a sec here. Yeah, I had started. I haven't been really in the mood to like play like, and I'm kind of sucked into Grey Zone Warfare right now. So I've been trying to play other stuff. I did try Warhammer Rogue Trader, but the opening tutorial of that was like so long. It like this one stream I played it was like 3 hours. I think I played it Wednesday after work, maybe is what it was, and that's usually when I have like some after work time to play. And it was like such a long tutorial to get it going, like until I'm finally at the part where like, okay, you blah blah, get here, shit goes down. Now it's like, okay, now we have our objectives. We need to repair these portions of our ship. So we got to go to these different regions to do it. And now it's like where you choose the missions that you want to go on. I'm like, okay, that's great. I'm finally at the point where I can, do stuff. But yeah, it was like, I had fun with it, but I was like, I so sucked into Grey Zone that I can't get pulled away. So I just been playing nothing but Grey Zone Warfare, which is a lot of fun. And it's interesting. Like I try to watch some people who stream it, and there's a lot of people who only play on the PvE server, which I guess is fine. Like if you want to have a little more relaxed play style. But there's also this people that they go there first to do all their tasks, to level up the vendors, to get better tier gear, so that way when they do the PvP and they die, they're all set to go with buying back the gear that they lost. And I'm like, I suppose, but it's like, if you want to do that, but I've only been playing on the PvP. I think what I might do so I can play more of it off stream is do PvE, like if I play when like the little guy is sitting on my lap watching YouTube or something, because I'm not going to play a PvP mode with him here, and it's like all of a sudden, someone shows up and I'm like, what's happening now? But yeah, so. And it's a good time. It's also so tense too. Like, or joke easily saying to get a heartbeat monitor watch for like scary games. I'm like, I need it for this game because it's like I'll play it and I'm in like a zone. I'm like, okay, I got to do an objective. I gotta kill a couple guys in the zone or collect some samples or find some intel or do whatever. And then all of a sudden that enemy helicopter comes in. It's like high alert. Like enemy helicopter landed at the LZ. Which way are they going? Are they coming here? We gotta get out of here. And it's funny, like anytime I've actually killed someone, it's always happened like off stream. Outside of like the first time I killed a guy, he was in a bush at a point of interest, and I killed him. I thought he was like an NPC for some reason, but he went down quick. I think he was going back to get his loot, so he didn't have any body armor on. But then like any other time I killed someone, it's always when I was playing offline, because typically I'll after work, if I play it, sometimes I'll not play online. I'll just casually play it. But I've also been PC streaming it because it's so demanding, using the Elgato. So I have my HD60X, and I'll just plug in the HDMI on there as the in, and then just plug the USB into my laptop, and then Windows treats it as a second monitor. So then in OBS on my PC, I just do a preview window of the OBS window, and I project it on the Elgato, and then I capture that in OBS on my laptop and stream it that way, so I don't have to worry about running into any issues, and I don't have to play the game at 1080p at low settings, so I can actually have some good detail. The only thing that's weird about the Elgato is like sometimes when I do that, like on my screen, so at least that way too, it's also good because I don't have to set up any freaking controls on OBS on my laptop. I still use my Stream Deck Plus to do all my scene transitions, and I can still adjust all my audio because it just routes the stream audio through the Elgato. So it's like I don't need to worry about doing it on my laptop and being like, okay, well, I got to plug the Stream Deck in there. My microphone goes on my laptop. It's like, no, I just keep everything on my PC. I'm just outputting audio and video of OBS essentially to another version of instance of OBS that's streaming it. But the Elgato sometimes will like do this weird like light layer on top of the footage, almost like there's a backlight to it, where it's like, or like it adjusts the brightness up for some reason. I don't know why it happens. It doesn't always happen, but like I'll watch it like on my instance of OBS on my PC, like it looks fine. And even if I do the projector, it looks fine. But once I project it through the Elgato and capture it, it's like something about it. It makes it like get a little too bright, and it's annoying. And for a while, I thought it was just the color of my laptop screen, because it's like I think this is an OLED panel, maybe. I don't remember. So I thought like, oh, maybe it's just the brightness and color and the way it looks on my laptop, because when I opened up the stream on my PC to see how it looks, like it looked fine in one instance. Like, okay, there isn't that funkiness to it, but it's just a little annoyances there that I got to work out. But luckily it's working pretty well to dual stream. So now I can do like, I was like, oh, I can go into No Man's Sky and I don't have to turn down all the stuff. I still can't always record. Like if I try to record in OBS, I should just record on OBS in my on my laptop instead. It'll tank my performance a bit, but that game is just fun to play, especially when you're like, it's like, oh, I got a mission, take me over near some enemy bases. Like I had one where it was like I had to go scout some point of interest I'd never been to, and I was like, okay, well the closest way I can get there is land at this one LZ that's right next to a point of interest that I went to previously, and then I'm just going to walk up to it and scout this place out. So I was like, okay, I get all my stuff. I'm like, let's get on the helicopter. I get on there. Some other guys on the helicopter with me for some reason. I'm like, okay, whatever. As we're coming down to land at LZ, I see 2 enemy PMCs down there at the extraction site. I'm like, oh shit. And there's invincibility for when you're on the helicopter so you don't get sniped out of it. but they're just waiting for us. And I was like, okay, clearly this guy is going back to get his stuff because he died here. And I didn't know that. So it was like, we land and we light up the first guy, but then the other guy that was with him like hides in a bush. And then because the guy that came with me didn't have any armor, he got downed. But then I also got lit up a bit, but I couldn't. So my character's like, and I got like, fuzzy, blurry kind of vision. I'm like, great, now I can't see this other guy. And then I got killed. And I'm like, I want to go back and get my stuff. So I go to the LZ south of that point of interest. And then I try to run back up. And they had pivoted. And then I got killed again. I was like, all right, let's try this again. So I wait, do something else, then go back and get my stuff. But it was just like, it's just a fun loop. Because usually I'll be like, okay, I got a bunch of different tasks. Who's everywhere? And I'll be like, oh, there's some guys at this point of interest. Okay, it must be clear there, so I can go there and do that job or something. But it is funny watching someone land. I'm like, oh, I wonder if those guys are still down at that zone. So I watch, like, I open up the map and I just watch the dot or the square, the blue square for the player. And it's like running, and then it's just gone. And I'm like, yep, they're still there.
You just like spy on people and be like, I see where you fucked up.
Yeah, well, because I'll do that, especially because if I'm not in a squad, and there is chat, like you can message people on your friendly faction and be like, hey, this and that. Yeah, usually if they're like in the shit of it, they're not going to open up chat and be like, yeah, he's still over here. So I was doing a mission at this one spot where I had to like collect some samples, and I had to finish killing some of the NPCs, the rebel forces that were there as part of another mission. So like, okay, let's go back and try to do this mission again, because I had done it earlier in the day. And when I did it earlier in the day, I was like, oh, let's go do some. I killed like two NPCs, because someone had already come through and cleared, and the enemies have like a 30-minute respawn timer on them, since it's an MMO. And I'm going around, and I hear this dude running, and I look, and there's just this other PMC, and I open up the map, it's not a friendly, and he's just there, and I'm like, he must have heard my shots, because you can hear shots from really far away, especially if you have like, they give you like, there's these headphones you can buy that have noise amplification and noise canceling. That way, if you're on the helicopter, you just hit circle and it mutes all the sound. You don't have to adjust your volume. But when you have them off, it like amplifies the noises around you. And then you can also, so that means you can hear things like breathing or walking through leaves and bushes much clearer. And there's like a second tier of that that's even better. So you can like really hear people like heavy breathing from being injured. And that's like, I've had that be super useful, where I was like, why do I hear heavy breathing over here? And there was like an NPC that had got shot, and they were hiding behind like this shed, but I could just hear the breathing enough from the distance I was because of the headset that I was wearing. So I went and I blasted. But anyways, I saw this guy and I was like, that's weird. What is this guy doing here? He didn't hear me shooting? And then I just light him up and he goes down, and I'm like, okay, I only came for my stuff. I didn't come here to PvP, so I'm gonna leave your loot. You can come back and get your loot. I don't care. I'll take a couple of like your waters or whatever, but I left all his stuff. Usually people will, like, if you have like a good gun, they'll strip the gun of parts and whatnot. And I guess there's a thing too where if you die, it's kind of like a Souls game where if you die, your body's there, but if you die on the way back, your body despawns. So what people will sometimes do, I guess, if they're in squads, is like, if we're going somewhere, Isli gets downed, I will pick up his backpack, and I will go to loot it, but I'll drop it instead. That way I don't get flagged as a malicious player on doing like friendly thieving. But I drop his backpack on the ground, so that way if he dies on his way back to retrieve it, it doesn't despawn. So there's like interesting mechanics there. I'm also not sure how the coma aspect of the game works yet, because typically when I die, it's like I just straight up die. Like, oh, I got shot in the head, I got shot like in the heart or something. And there's other times I get down, it's like, oh, you're in a coma. I'm like, okay, but that seems more like you're in a squad type of thing. Like if you're in a squad, instead of being down, you go into a coma and a player has to come and fix you up, and then you could skip the coma and just go to respawn. But I think there might be a proximity thing to it, because when last night I went to go to that same point of interest that I was trying to kill, I needed to kill like 2 guys and collect some samples. So I'm like, okay, let's go look for the samples. So I approach this place from the north side of the map, and I hear suppressed shots. I'm like, okay, well, suppressed shots means it's a PMC. There's no NPCs that have suppressors, except maybe like a high tier zone I haven't been to. So I hear him shooting, and he shoots an NPC that's on the other side of a fence that I'm near. I'm like, okay, there's the one guy here at least. And I hear another shot that sounded a little louder than the standard AKs that the rebels are using. And I'm like, there could be a second guy. So I'm going around, and then some dude, he pings me in chat, he's like, PvP? I'm like, I think there's one guy here for sure. Might be a second. And he's like, bet. And then he flew out. I'm like, okay. Like, it's so weird that people assume that just because there's one. Yeah, he said bet a lot, by the way, like in chat. And he's like, still there? Blah, blah. He's like, no, he's a bet. And I'm like, okay. But then it became like this, my whole mission of going to collect samples and like looking for this, I had to look for a water well and like a mound of dirt or something like that. And that's all I wanted to do and kill 2 NPCs. And then it's like, it turned into this thing where like for the next hour and a half, it was this tense fight with me, another guy in my faction who showed up, his buddy who was doing not much, and then looking for who I thought was only this one guy. So I'm like sneaking around, and I'm like going like the long way around this point of interest. Look, because I'm also looking for the well. I'm like, I have the stuff I need on me to check the well. I'm like, I'm not going to shoot any NPCs, and they're all dead for the most part, so I didn't have to worry about it. I'm like, just don't spawn on me and shoot me in the back. So I'm like, okay, I'm looking for the well, trying to be quiet, and I sneak all the way around. I'm like, oh, maybe the mound of dirt's over here, so I'm like looking somewhere, and then I'm in a bush, and then the dude, the other guy that showed up, he was on the other side of the map, and I think he might have shot a couple times because I did hear shots from his direction, and then I just see the enemy PMC just like sprinting up the road, and I just light that fucker up, and then take him down, and I go to loot him, and I was like, oh, well, I'm gonna take your gun. And then so I take his gun, I grab something else, like he had a big backpack too, so I'm like, I'm taking that big backpack, and then all of a sudden, like, I guess his buddy was in a bush, and he just lights me up, and then I was like, fuck, there was a second guy, and then because we heard a helicopter leave, and we weren't sure if maybe the buddy extracted, and he lights me up, I die, and I'm like, fuck, and I was like, damn it, and I'm like, all right, well, I died, and like I died over here, given like the position I died, yada yada, and then I spawn back. I go back there as the other side. I run down, and I hear the guy. I make it back to the spot. I don't have much gear on me because I want to pick up all my stuff, but I have like another gun, and I'm like sneaking through the bushes like a sneak walk you can do, and I'm by this like little shack that's like a woodshed, and I hear movement in the bushes near me. But also, this game does this thing that annoys me where there are some, in this game, and there are some games where you can see it like in third person, or if you look at it friendly, where like if you're crouched and your character like, or even if they're standing and they turn, eventually their upper torso turns to a point where their lower body has to turn with them, right? So they rotate their steps. They do that in this game, but you make noise when you do that. So if I'm not, and I don't free look, which I think you have to like do middle mouse to free look. So I just turn normal. So because I'm always looking left and right, my character's constantly shuffling their feet left and right. So sometimes it'll throw me off like, was that an enemy or was that just my character? So I hear this bush sound. I'm like, this has to be an enemy character. So I go and sneak around, but then he notices me as well. And unfortunately, I think it was one of those like situations where I was going around the one side and he was on the other side going around, come behind me. So we're kind of circling, but he made the choice to say, fuck it. And he just quickly sprinted at me and took me down. And I was like, okay, he's over here. And then, then I went back and, again, I just like, okay, fuck it. I lost all the gear I dropped earlier because I died a second time. Buy a bunch more stuff from the vendors, go back there to the top LZ, run down. And he's like, well, I waited a bit. I'm like, let's wait a bit. Maybe I'm not going to go back and do this. I'll do something else. I've already died enough. And the guys, I'm like watching the dots on the map and they're heading up towards the LZ. And I'm like, they still there? And he's like, yeah, I got one, and then someone else just landed. I'm like, all right, well, and I had already made up my mind to be en route there, so I was like, well, I'll be a distraction. And so I go up there, and it just becomes this thing of like, okay, I got to hide in the tall grass, and then I hear people getting lit up. The dude I was chatting with, he died. He got killed, and he goes, did you see him? He sends me a message like, did you see the guy? And then I see the dude who killed him go up to loot his body, and so I light up that guy, kill him, but then I heard a shot like north of me. I'm like, okay, well, there must be someone else here, so I'm not gonna do it. I'm like, well, I killed the guy that killed you, and then we're like waiting. Then he shows back up. He's like, bet, and then he shows back up. And then he comes back, and I sneak over. He comes with his friend, so I go over to the body. I loot the body I killed, and he had my gun that I dropped earlier when I first dropped him because it was the same guy I killed earlier in the event, and it just became this like long, tense, again, hour-and-a-half situation of like looking at, and everyone's like so still and quiet when they're like searching. like for it's so funny watching the friendlies on the radar because like they're just in the tree lines like waiting, looking, and I'm like, I feel like I just want to run out there and like just bait out some shots. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I just gonna be a little more
cause
aggressive.
chaos.
Yeah, just cause chaos. But yeah, I mean, it was a ton of fun. Like I didn't finish my task at all, but I ended up getting out of there. Like after we killed those guys, the one dude came back again. He killed that guy, lit him up. So I like took the big backpack. I took my gun back from him and a bunch of other stuff. So it's like I kind of came out net neutral. I think maybe a little net negative because I spent money on weapons that I lost. But like it wasn't like it was all like starter weapons, so it didn't matter. But it was just a fun time, and it's like man, I do want to. I was so close to leveling up a couple vendors to get them to tier 2 inventory that I'm like I was thinking I was like oh maybe I should just quickly run, finish those tasks, and then do it. And it's so funny in that game like anytime you have to search for someone, and I guess the game's like based on a book as well.
Oh,
Yeah, because like it's. I think there was like a nuke that went off in the center of the map or something like that. Like there's a dead zone that you can't go into, and there's like radiation there and yada yada. But there are also like some anomaly stuff that people have seen. Not quite like a, stalker or anything, but like just some weird stuff. But again, I think it's like loosely based on a book. But anyways, what was I saying? I forget what I was saying now. I lost. Oh, I should just go and do some tasks. But every time they tell you to find someone, it's like they're always dead. Like anytime you have to look for anybody, they're dead because there are no NPCs that you talk to in the world. So even at your base, like it's just AI and that walk around and say little barkers. There's no like the people you talk to, like the vendors, they're in the menu. You're not walking up to them and they're not voice line being like, "Hey soldier, I need you to do this for me," yada yada. So it's like the one guy's like, "Oh, I need you to go I need to talk to an informant. He's south of Hunter's Paradise. Go meet up with them." And I'm like, so I look on the map and I see like, okay, there looks like a something here and something here because it's like a topographical like satellite map, so you can kind of see when there's like a building. So I like that because then I could be like, oh, he's definitely going to be in one of these two spots. So I go down, I land, I walk back, and I find him. And I get to one building. It's like there's a note that says, "Hey, this place got a little hot, whatever. I went over west to this direction." So like I go and I look on the map and I see there's like another building. So I run over there and I go inside and sure enough, he got captured and he was dead on the ground. I'm like, yep, he's dead. It's just like, and I had to find like it. They're all dead. That's right. Like I had an interpreter I had to find at this one point of interest. He is dead. I got to go search for this dude's husband or this woman's husband, and like he's gonna be dead. Like I know he'll be dead. Like everyone's dead. Like it's like find out what happened to these people. There's like half a body I found one time. It was like, yeah, they're dead. Like no one is alive. But yeah, it's fun to play. Like I said, I can get the PvE bit. Like if you were to play with friends and wanted to be a little more, relaxed and just have some fun, killing some NPCs, raiding a big place, getting some loot. But I'm curious though what the player base split is like. Like how many people are playing PvE versus how many are playing PvP, and then between West, Central, and East, which one's the most populated server? And then how many servers are there? Because sometimes I'll log in and I'll be like, oh, I see some names that I'm like, I know these names. I've seen them before. But other times I will see people I don't recognize at all. It's so funny. I saw this new guy pop in. He's an open com. I was like, wow, this is so cool. This gun's so cool. And then he goes and flies out to Bravo 1 and I just watch him. And then I see his little dot. And as soon as he gets like to some NPCs, it was like a night mission, I guess he was doing. And he got killed and he spawned back at base. I'm like, yep, welcome to Gray Zone. gotta be careful out there, bud.
First time, huh?
Yeah, first time. Yeah, but it's fun. I like that. Like I said, I wouldn't mind dying so much in the PvP bits. Like especially at least if I go to a place and I complete some of my tasks, like then I'm fine. I'm like, okay, I still made progress, and I won't mind losing my stuff because most of it's tier 1. Once I get to tier 2, and it's like, okay, at least now I can get better gear. And I don't think there's too much that you can find, strictly in. There might be a couple where like you can only loot them out of some high tier areas and whatnot, and maybe that'd be like, okay, get a couple of those. But who knows? At least everything you can just buy some cheapo stuff. Can't get the best armor piercing ammo yet, but that's fine. But yeah, it's just it's got its hooks in me, man. I can't get away from it. It's a problem. I wish I could play like at least with Icarus. It was like I could also play Icarus offline, even when the kid was there. Like I played that way more. Like sure, there's animals that could kill me. I could still die. I have died, off stream. Playing that game. But I was able to play a bunch more of it, so I can kind of like burn out that serotonin that Gray Zone's given me, and just like then I can put it in rotation because I'd like to rotate it with other stuff. Be like, okay, let's play. I'll hop in Red River with Trisket, or now I'll just do some Gray Zone, or I'll do some Icarus, or I'll do some Warhammer. I wish I had more time to game. If I had more time to game, it wouldn't be a problem because then I can like, okay, now I can do Gray Zone on my own time and then play something else at night. But like night's primarily when I can play. It's like, well, I want to play Gray Zone, so it's a little rough. But there's so many games coming out now that it's like, I'll be playing. It's like I'm looking forward to Assassin's Creed Shadows, Adamfall, all those games. So I'll be playing those for sure. But and then at least and they'll be nice too when I can finally burn out Gray Zone, because then I just wait for a reset versus like Destiny waiting for a content update. It's like, okay, I'll just wait for the server reset and just run everything again, because now I can run it with knowing where stuff is, knowing what I need, better efficiency, and then everybody else is also starting at the ground floor, which I'm really curious how it's going to play out in an MMO where it's like, okay, now we all have the same missions. Now stuff that you have to collect something, it'll be there for everybody. Like you just pick it up, it's always there for whoever needs it. If your mission's active, the item's there. But for stuff like, hey, I need you to kill 20 rebels in this area, I'm like, all right, how's that going to go?
I wonder if they're going to make the lines like Final Fantasy 14 does when the instance servers, everybody gets in a line and
That's
waits
funny.
for them. Or like the Destiny loot cave where everybody's just kind of like gathered up together, like, okay, wait for the next wave and go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love when MMOs turn polite like that.
I know, it's just like, everybody get in line. We're going to get everybody. Okay, it's not going to take too long. Here, I'll help you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you could probably, in that instance, like, if you are East Coast, you could probably just jump on a West Coast server after you get off work or something, because, like, okay, no one should be on those, like, populating those servers. Versus, like, if you get on at peak time, it could be rough. But again, there's not too many of those missions where, like, it's kill 20 people. And usually the other vendors will have stuff that you can do anyways. So it'll be like, that. But that'll be nice for the ones where it's like, oh, you need to go find a thing at the bottom of this bunker. It's like, all right, well, there's so many people there. I don't have to worry about how many NPCs are actually in this place that might kill me on the way to the objective. So that's nice. But it'll be interesting as well, like for missions that send you off to a point of interest that's either across the map or between you and an enemy faction. So I'm like, okay, because I don't know if it's always the same mission structure, no matter where you are. Like, is it always the same order of operations? Like, do we always go to the same spots in the same order, no matter which faction you go to, because it's the same vendors? Or do they try to, rotate it? Like, if my missions are always sending me to the left point of interest and the one directly across from us, is it the same way there? We're like, okay, you go to the left and then directly across, left, directly across. So it's the same mission type. It's just the point of interest is rotated to kind of keep you in a certain section. Or are we all going to, YBL1 to look for this? Are we all going to Hunter's Paradise? What is it? How does it work? I'm curious how they do that. But anyways, fun time. And I forget, like in OBS, like flashback recording only turns on when you're streaming and or recording already, especially the vertical plugin. And I forget that every time, which annoys me. I need to just turn it on. Because so many times like, oh, let's capture that, because I have like a hotkey for flashback recording vertical, and like it doesn't capture anything. I'm like, what? Why didn't it capture anything? Because I'm too PC streaming now. I can't. It's not doing it. So I got to set that up on my laptop to actually record. Got to update OBS and put in the vertical and set everything up and yada yada yada. But
could you use something like the shadow play? Is that the NVIDIA one, where it just kind of like quietly records in the background and you can hotkey that instead of like having to set it up in OBS every time? It just starts at startup.
I guess I should do that. I prefer an OBS just because I can set higher quality. But plus I like it. I like having the vertical plugin because then it's already edited versus like I hate editing a vertical short with the full screen footage, because then it's like zooming into me is going to be like, it's not going to look as good as if I just captured, the camera on the vertical cutout, because I can set that up exactly how I want it. Plus, the way I set up the vertical is that the footage behind my head is the full screen footage, and then I have the center cut down the middle. Whereas if I have to zoom in, it's like the corner of the UI, and I see like maybe the butt of the gun or something come into frame, and it's just I can't line it up properly, especially because I put my camera more to the right. So it's like, okay, I can only zoom in and crop so much because of the position at which I have my camera versus the way I shift myself to the center on the vertical. But anyway, and yeah, that game takes up a lot of space too. Like I have like a really high bitrate set for OBS recordings and like Loreline Laser Eyes, like, whatever, maybe 12 gigs for like a couple hours of playing that. Space Marine 2, maybe like 15, 16 gigs for a couple hours of playing that. And I play like 2.5 hours of Gray Zones, like that's 66 gigs because there's so much fucking foliage. It's like got to render it all at the highest bit rate possible. I'm like, all right,
like 40 free gigs on my hard drive.
Yeah, OBS. When I went to OBS later, it's like, hey, we had to stop recording because you ran out of space. I was like, all right, but I did have a bunch of like older like lore life videos.
All those old videos taking up space.
Yeah, well, I got to get better about like because I don't delete the videos until after I've loaded them to YouTube. But I have like I have like 4 lore live videos I could delete right now that I don't need up, and they're not taking up too much space. They're like well, why is this one like? Yeah, these ones are like 20 gigs. Those ones are pretty big, but these other ones are pretty small. But yeah, I gotta like delete them like once I load them up. I was really bad about doing that with when I was doing Prince of Persia. I was like, why am I out of hard drive space? Like, oh, because I haven't deleted any of the videos I've already loaded to YouTube. But,
I don't delete anything.
Yeah, and you can't like for some reason like you can't compress videos more because they're already kind of compressed as far as they can be. When they're as they are. So I'm like, oh, maybe I can just like compress them so I can keep them as like to have the masters for some reason. I don't know why. And it's like, nope. It's like can't compress them any further. I'm like, okay, never mind. But yeah, like 3.5 hours of Rogue Traders, like 26 gigs, but it's like 2 hours of Gray Zone. It's fucking 3 times that almost.
Jeez.
But anyways, not that I'm like. That's why I only want to do flashback recording because I don't need to record like a bunch of Gray Zone. I'm not putting any videos out of it. But if something fun happens, I want to capture it. But anyway, all right. Well, let's see. Do I have any other? I think I did take some notes. Let me make sure I double check my notes here. Oh, I had a bit where I talked about the 66 gigs. So when you play and you call in a helicopter, faction friendly helicopters will be marked on blue on the map. These little blue icons that show you like 1, 2, 3, 4 for the helicopter number, and yours are green. So I call in this helicopter. I'm like, okay, let's go do this mission. Yada yada. And the helicopter pilot voiceover is like inbound to the AO in 30 seconds. Whatever. It's like letting you know like the timer. Blah blah blah. So I'm getting my stuff ready. And some time goes by. And helicopter lands down. I finish getting all my stuff. I jump on the helicopter. Some dude jumps on with me. I'm like, all right. And the helicopter flies off, and I'm like looking at my stuff and. Then I open up the map, and I'm like, it's taking like a weird route to my spot. And then I open up the map for it, and I click on it and realize I'm on a blue helicopter. And then I'm like, I am not going to where I want to go. I got on the wrong helicopter. So then
did you jump on someone else's?
I got on someone else's helicopter. So then I get out, and I lay down. I go prone. And then I look next to me, and the guy that was also on there with me, he goes prone. And then I see on the map another guy run off. And so I'm like, well, this is awkward. I got on the wrong helicopter. And he goes, yeah, I got on the wrong helicopter too. So then we had to wait for a helicopter to come pick us up and take us back. But it did unlock the landing zone for me, so I didn't have to run to find it. So I'm like, I should just start getting on helicopters that are going to places I've never been, so I could at least get those LZs. Because that would have prevented me from dying a bunch when I tried to go to this other one. Because like, oh, I got to get to Delta 3, but I have to go to this one first in order to go up and scout it. But I kept dying because the players over there. But so I thought that was like that was funny.
Both did. That's kind of amusing.
Yeah. And so it the game again. I think I talked about last time, but because it has an MMO, it's an MMO. It has an AFK timer. I don't know if it's only in when you're at the base, because if they kick you if you're in the open world, then you kind of like I don't know if you didn't die, but if you quit in the open world, you lose all your stuff because you spawn back in the AO in your base. And so I don't know if they can kick you there, but I do know there's an AFK timer. So the other night I was like playing and I was in this place like that I hadn't been. I was kind of, scouting it out that I needed to for a mission, yada yada. And then but I had some DoorDash on the way, and then I was like, okay, let's try to get this done. And then DoorDash showed up, and I was like, wow, well, I'm hungry and I want to eat real quick. So like I hid my guy in a bush, and I quickly ran, got the food, like munched down like half this sandwich that I got, and then came back, and I was like sitting here eating my sandwich, like wiggling the mouse every little bit, and then also making sure my guy eats because he's getting hungry and thirsty. I'm like, we're both eating, my dude. But I was like, I got to make sure he doesn't get kicked. But I'm hoping there's not. I don't think I should test it. Like, just take no gear and go test it and see if there's an AFK timer. But I can't imagine they'd kick you while you were actually out.
But if there's an AFK timer, why would it kick gear as well? Like, wouldn't it probably just kick you from the game but not make you lose gear?
Well, because I know if you quit you drop gear. I think if the game crashes, you don't. So maybe they do that, which is why I should go test it, just to make sure that's the case. Because then if I go AFK, it's like, okay, if I die, or if I get kicked, it's like whatever. I still got my stuff, and I was easy test. I just take like a belt and one piece of like loot on me or something, and just go stand AFK. But yeah, it's because I had been kicked. I've noticed that when I was like in the main base and I was doing something, and it's like, oh, it booted me back to the main menu. It's like, yeah, you've been kicked. I was like, all right.
I feel like maybe if you quit or if you AFK, it probably drops the gear, because I feel like otherwise that could be exploitable. Like people would just get a bunch of gear and be like, "Oh, I don't know if I can make it back.
Oh, then
Alive,
it's
so
yeah.
I'm just gonna hide in a bush."
Right,
and
right,
get
yeah.
inhibited and keep. all
You're
my
in a
stuff.
busy point of interest. A bunch of PvP shit's going down. Like, I don't want to fight anybody. I got my stuff. I'm gonna hide in the closet, and then it's just like wait for it to kick you out. Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, because
that is the type of like exploit that people don't catch at the start, and it has to be patched later because people get creative.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
like exactly the type.
It has been out since for about 9 months. I'm sure someone probably has like maybe they've tested it perhaps, but yeah, it's that would be a funny thing to do. Be like, all right, but
I mean, that's a very me thing to do. Be like, I'm just gonna wait this out, and
I can make
I'm
it.
just gonna AFK. I don't want to deal with this.
Yeah, I had this bit where I was like, when I was talking about that one zone where I kept landing and the people waiting, and we kept trying to go back. I kept trying to go back, and they kept killing me. And then eventually later, it's like, hey, are they at? I saw some guy. I was like, are they still there? And when they killed me closer to the other LZ, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to the LZ on the other side of the map, and then I'm just gonna go do my scouting mission. So I landed, and they were down below, and I heard them shooting at another guy that was down there. So then I run away. I go to this other. It's like this big POI that's like a fort in Aerith. It's like this big base that people go to get loot and whatnot. And I was going to go around. I'm like, okay, there's got to be like a landing zone here between this and the point of interest I need to go to for the mission. I'm like, I'll just unlock those for later. But then I saw some like NPCs. I'm like, I wonder how well geared these NPCs are, because it's a fort, right? Like, let's kill some. And I killed a couple, and then I killed some more. But then I'm shooting, and I hear a helicopter come to the LZ I went to, and then it left. So I'm like, okay, it must have picked up. And so I'm shooting some NPCs there for a while, and I'm taking my time looting. And all of a sudden I start getting shot at because they heard me. So they didn't get on their helicopter. They're like, oh, we're going to go hunt down whoever's at this shooting at this at Fort Nerith. So I ended up just kind of running along the wall where they could still see me, but like sprinting because I wanted to get around it to where I needed to go. And eventually I ran out of stamina. And then when I slowed down, they ended up shooting me. It's like, okay, they got me. And then later some dude, I was like, in hindsight, I was like, I should have just gone inside the base and just fucking, ran and got into a bush or something. And then they would have been looking for me the whole time, but there's NPCs around, so they're going to have to deal with them. And then if I can get the jump on them, that'd be great. But luckily there's this cool dude who was like, he went to because I looked up, I'm like, I have to look up, is there a landing zone at that spot I was going to? And I pulled up the map for the game, and there was. And I messaged the guy that was there. I was like, hey, is it still hot over there? And he's like, I was like, I got killed. I wanted to go get my stuff. He's like, no, he's like, is this? I found your body. All your gun got stripped, but all your gear's still here. And I'm like, I was like, okay. He's like, well, I was trying to unlock Delta 3, blah blah. And he's like, oh, I can just come. Are you at base? I can come pick you up. And then so he just flew back. He left what he was doing, flew back to base, picked me up, took me out to Delta 3, and then I unlocked it, got my gear, and then I left. And I was like, what a exclamation point VIP in chat. But yeah, he was nice guy doing that. Then that's where I was like, I should just start jumping on helicopters and like get this point of interest. But anyway, all right. Well, that'll go ahead and wrap it up for this episode. Then, like I said, not too much that happened. Hopefully,
Except for the great outage that we didn't even talk about.
Yeah, it was only 24 hours. If it was still going on, I would have talked about it. It got resolved.
I know it wasn't actually bad.
Yeah, it was
literally only affected me because it happened to be on the day I was going to play a PlayStation game.
Yeah, I was like, I bet Capcom's real excited about this right now.
Yeah.
But, all right. But we'll go ahead and call it there. So thank you all for tuning in. Listen, thank you, Isli. Thank you, Zai, for joining.
Yep.
And we will see you all next time.
Later.
Bye.